Imagine walking into a room where you are instantly and entirely known. Not judged, not measured, but seen with a kind of radiant, unconditional approval you have perhaps spent your entire life searching for. You sit down in a folding chair at an introductory self-improvement seminar, or you join an intense new community group, and within hours, you are surrounded by people who are fiercely interested in your every word. They look you directly in the eyes with unnerving focus. They nod at your smallest insights. They tell you that you are uniquely gifted, that you have a special energy, and that you belong here in a way you have never belonged anywhere else. It feels like a massive collective exhale. The chronic loneliness that modern life instills in all of us suddenly evaporates. When you speak, they perfectly mirror your deepest values back to you. When you share a subtle vulnerability, they do not pull away. They lean in closer. They match your emotional intensity precisely. They validate your past pain as definitive proof of your hidden potential. It is an intoxicating warmth. It feels like you have finally found your tribe. It feels serendipitous, almost like destiny has intervened to bring you home. But this profound sense of homecoming is not serendipity. It is a highly calibrated, meticulously rehearsed architecture of control. When we look at the survivors of high-demand groups or coercive relationships, the outside world often asks entirely the wrong question. They look at the aftermath and ask how someone so intelligent could be so easily fooled. But this question completely misunderstands the mechanism of the trap. Falling for this is not an intellectual failing. The people who are drawn in are not weak. They are simply human. And they are being targeted by a system that actively weaponizes the most fundamental human drive in existence, the biological need for connection. This is the perfect welcome. It is the tactical deployment of overwhelming, unearned affection, designed to bypass your critical defenses before you even realize you are under siege. It disarms you not with fear, but with absolute validation. It makes you feel so safe that you willingly lower your own drawbridge. So how does a manufactured smile and a sudden flood of compliments dismantle a healthy mind's natural boundaries so quickly? What is actually happening, neurologically and psychologically, in those intoxicating first moments of false intimacy? To understand the perfect welcome, you must look at the brain under the influence of sudden, hyper-concentrated positive reinforcement. Psychologists call this mechanism love bombing. When a group directs intense, mirrored affection toward you, they are not just being friendly, they are initiating a chemical cascade. Your brain is flooded with dopamine, the neurotransmitter responsible for reward, alongside oxytocin, the hormone governing bonding and trust. This chemical cocktail creates an artificial, rapid emotional bond that feels just like genuine intimacy. But this euphoria comes with a severe cost. It actively suppresses the executive functioning of your prefrontal cortex. You feel so good that your natural threat detection system shuts down entirely. Forensic experts in coercive control, like Dr. Margaret Singer and Dr. Robert J. Lifton, have documented this exact recruitment phase in countless high-demand groups. Lifton noted that coercive persuasion always begins by creating a seemingly safe, enveloping environment. The love bomb is the bait, meticulously designed to establish a profound baseline of dependency. The group positions itself as the sole provider of your emotional regulation and your sense of worth. And this is the crucial insight that outsiders miss. This mechanism works perfectly on brilliant, highly educated people, specifically because it targets basic human neurobiology, not intellect. You cannot outsmart a dopamine hack once you are inside it. Your intelligence is bypassed, hijacked by the sheer physiological relief of absolute acceptance. But the affection is never meant to last. Love bombing is merely the setup for the true mechanism of control, the withdrawal. Once the group becomes your primary source of emotional safety, the unconditional warmth abruptly stops. The perfect welcome is replaced by impossible standards, subtle critiques, and the silent threat of exile. The affection is now weaponized through intermittent reinforcement, doled out only when you comply with their demands. You will do almost anything to get that initial high back. You are no longer navigating a relationship. You are managing an addiction to their approval. The trap is sprung. So when our own neurobiology can be used against us so effectively, how do we defend our minds? If intelligence is not enough to survive the perfect welcome, what is the way out? When neurobiology fails to protect us, we must turn to philosophy. More than 2,000 years ago, the Stoics identified the exact vulnerability that love bombing exploits. It is rooted in what they called the dichotomy of control. When you step into the blinding warmth of a coercive group's welcome, they are handing you a mirror that makes you look flawless. But the Stoic recognizes a dangerous reality. The mirror belongs to them. External validation is entirely outside of your control. If you outsource your baseline sense of worth to a group's sudden approval, you have handed them the leash to your own mind. They can yank that leash whenever they choose, simply by taking the mirror away. Buddhist psychology takes this defense even deeper with the concept of upadana, which translates to clinging or attachment. The psychological danger of the love bomb is not the affection itself. The danger is our desperate clinging to the chemical high it produces. We attach ourselves to the manufactured euphoria of finally being understood. But the Buddhist map warns that clinging to a temporary, external state guarantees our eventual suffering. When we observe overwhelming praise without instantly absorbing it into our core identity, when we practice non-attachment to the dopamine spike, we neutralize the weapon before the trap can close. We stop needing the high, which means we cannot be controlled by the inevitable withdrawal. So how do you carry this armor forward? The next time you enter a new relationship or community and experience a massive flood of unearned, absolute validation, you must pause. Do not let the relief wash over you blindly. Instead, hold your ground and ask yourself a very specific question. Is this intimacy or is this architecture? Remember that genuine human connection does not arrive fully formed and perfectly polished on the very first day. True belonging is built slowly. It requires friction, boundaries, and the deeply unglamorous reality of gradual trust. The cult psychology continues this investigation. Understanding these mechanisms is the most powerful protection you have. Until next time, remember, any group that demands your autonomy in exchange for their affection never actually loved you in the first place.